A Netflix inaugurou hoje uma nova sede em São Paulo, projetada para sustentar o aumento de 20% no quadro de funcionários por aqui no Brasil. A abertura coincide com outro marco. Faz 15 anos desde o início da operação da Netflix no Brasil. Em entrevista exclusiva ao nosso âncora Victor Irajá, Greg Peters, co-CEO da Netflix, afirmou que a oferta feita pela companhia para a compra da Warner torna a proposta indiscutivelmente superior àquela feita pelos concorrentes da Paramount. Peters também comentou sobre o sistema tributário brasileiro e os impactos no modelo de negócio da companhia. Vamos acompanhar a entrevista exclusiva com Irajá.
Olá, sejam todos muito bem-vindos a essa edição do CNN Money Entrevistas. Nessa edição a gente recebe o co-CEO da Netflix, Greg Peters. Greg, thank you for accepting our invitation.
My pleasure to be here.
Greg, we are following, of course, the dispute between Netflix and Paramount for the Warner Bros. Company. I'd like to understand why do Netflix thinks it has the best offer?
Well, I would say right now we have a signed agreement. So we have the agreement that the Warner Brothers board has determined is the best offer, unanimously approved it. And if you look at it, quite frankly, we think that it's an offer that provides certainty. It's very clear. We've switched to all cash to make that very undisputable. And I would say also when you look at the value of the combined entity, both the streaming service and the studios, plus then the Discovery Global Networks that'll be spun off, the board has determined that putting those things together, that our offer was better than the competitive offers.
And Greg, what's the interest between for the Warner Bros. Company? It's the infrastructure, it's the catalog. What you're looking for in this deal?
Yeah, I would say once we started analyzing the deal and learning more about it, really you could say the simplest way to put it is that we saw what Warner has built and the assets that they have would work better in our model, and that we would be actually better as a company as a result. Simple example of this is, Warner Brothers has an incredible library of titles that they've produced over 100 years. And we think we have, quite frankly, the best global streaming service. So we have more global reach. We think we have a better product experience. So if we take those titles and we put them in that service, we automatically are creating more value for consumers and for our members as a result.
Greg, do antitrust policies concern you in that deal? Of course, here in Brazil, that is an important market for you. In the United States, in Europe, does it concern you?
I think, of course, regulators are going to want to look at the deal. We expect that that's natural, and of course, we'll participate and help them in that process. But we feel very confident that they will ultimately conclude based on the data that this is a deal that they should approve. And there's really sort of two lenses that you might say to answer that question, and it's why we're confident. One is if you look at the stakeholders that are involved in this. So if you look at consumers, this is a better deal for consumers. We're going to give them more entertainment value. If you look at creators, we are going to grow the amount of production that we are doing. We are going to create more opportunities for creators around the world and give them bigger audiences as well. That means more productions. That means more jobs. We're also more, frankly, focused on innovation and driving those experiences forward. So we think basically everyone wins from that. And then the other lens you might look at it is what's the competitive environment? And if you look at TVs, these are increasingly competitive environments. So that we've got folks like YouTube coming to the TVs. They're doing things like American football games. One of the American football games was actually here in Brazil not too long ago. They're doing Oscars. You can see long form film and series on YouTube. So they are looking more like what we traditionally saw on TV, whether you've got tech competitors like Amazon and MGM, you've got Apple competing for Emmys and Oscars. There's just Globo here in Brazil, a very fearsome competitor, I would say. So you just have so much competition for TV time that's going to get even more competitive, I would say. You've got Instagram coming to the TV as well. So we just think that the regulatory authorities will look at that and will determine, there is no problem with competition.
And there is space for so many players in that market.
There is. When we see actually more and more players coming in to compete for time on the television.
Okay, thinking about Amazon, for example, or Google, the streaming business is not their core business. How do Netflix can compete with them, thinking the core business of of Netflix is the service, the streaming service.
Yeah. Well, I think you just said it, right? Which is that, there are advantages that they have and there are disadvantages. And some of the advantages is they're gigantic companies that bring tremendous amount of capabilities. They can leverage other things into the mix. But the disadvantage they have is it's not their primary focus. And for us, it is our primary focus. Essentially, our business is, are we satisfying consumers, our members, with entertainment or not? And we live or die by that, essentially. So we have to be great at that because otherwise we do not have a business.
But they have amount or a capacity to do investments, for example, that is comparable to?
Well, or exceeds us, I would say. If they really want to, they have way more, economic capacity than we do, for sure. But again, they're trying to solve multiple problems. They're, have many, many priorities. We have one priority, which is, work with the best storytellers on the planet and give our members the most compelling entertainment.
Greg, last year you had generated $1.5 billion in advertising, in revenue last year. I would like to understand if the consumer is willing to see advertising while, I don't know, watching a movie, for example.
Well, I would say the best part of our entry into the advertising business has been to give more consumers on the planet the ability to access the library of content that we have at a lower price point, because they think that actually a lower price point plus ads is a better option for them. You mentioned film. It's a great example. Like we actually do just advertising at the beginning of newer films, so we don't break up that film. So we're trying to be, it's just one example of where we're trying to be thoughtful about the content, thoughtful about the content experience, and balance, essentially giving the viewer a great entertainment experience while supporting the brand and the brand's need to tell their story, and so that we can actually balance the advertising revenue with the subscription revenue.
And that advertising is like focused on each consumer of it.
You mean targeted and personalized? Yes. I mean, it's a really good point, actually, because you have the old world of television advertising. You have some amazing, we've all seen commercials that have, made us laugh and things like that. So it's a very fun way to tell brand stories. But there was no targeting. There was no personalization. Everyone got the same ad. Digital, of course, has the ability to personalize, to target, to measure. So now we can bring these two worlds together and essentially bring the best of both worlds.
Greg, thinking about the Brazilian scenario, you had an impact of taxes matters last year.
Yep.
It was deeply discussed. I'd like to understand how it is to operate here in Brazil, a market that is so important to you. But I'd like to understand these difficulties. Of course, if we think, for example, the tributes you pay here.
Yeah. Well, I'd say every country is different, right? And every country has opportunities and challenges. But, maybe just stepping back, we're in an office that we just spent some time building out here that we hope will serve us, in Brazil for, decades to come. We've built more capacity here to handle growth. We've actually grown the number of employees we've had in Brazil by 20% in the last year, because that's the kind of commitment we have to the country and to work with the great storytellers that come from Brazil. So, I'd say we always work with the governments as well. We want to be positive contributors to the communities that we operate in. And, partly that means paying taxes. That's a good thing. We want to do so in a smart, predictable way. And so our job is to, have a discussion with the government and make sure that we're both getting what we want.
Well, it's good to pay taxes, but I don't know if so many taxes, how we pay here in Brazil.
Well, yeah, I mean, partly you want to be the right amount. Partly you want to just get sort of predictability so you can plan for them and, understand what's going to happen. And so I'd say, this is something we got to work through. And partly what we're trying to do is make sure that the government understands we contribute every day. I mean, last year we employed 12,000 people in Brazil on the productions we did. In over 30 cities over the last 3 years, we've done productions around Brazil. So we're super excited to grow that, do more of that. And we just want to make sure that the government understands that's part of our investment and part of our commitment to supporting the Brazilian culture and Brazilian society.
And thinking about the productions here in Brazil, you have, in fact, invested in productions with Brazilian directors, actors. I'd like to understand this focus. Why do you bet in the Brazilian market?
Well, we think our job is actually to entertain the world, and to do that successfully, you have to work with the world's greatest storytellers. Some of the world's greatest storytellers come from right here in Brazil, and we love working with them so that we can give them the opportunity to tell that story in a compelling way and then find a gigantic global audience. I mean, just one fun example, I don't know if you actually saw Caramelo.
No, I didn't
Yet. I would check it out because it's been viewed over 50 million times globally. It was in the top 10 in over 90 countries around the world. That's just one of many, many examples we could cite. You know, Sintonia. We've got a new production going on called Brazil 70, which is going to be amazing. Senna, I don't know if you saw Senna, but these are the kind of stories that we can tell with amazing creators in Brazil, and hopefully do a great job at satisfying local audiences, bring those to global audiences as well. That's super exciting.
The language is not a barrier to that.
Well, I think part of what we seek to do with our service essentially is bring that content in a way that is accessible to different viewers around the world who speak different languages. So partly that might be dubbing. Some viewers prefer to do dub. Some want to listen to it in the original, Portuguese, but then also have subtitles.
Of course.
So, we try and do a great job at that and make sure that we can build the big audience because that content is accessible.
I would like to understand the use of AI in the productions. What do you see in the future? Which will be the use of this new technology? I don't know, for example, jobs, they are in menace or no?
Well, I would say fundamentally, like we've seen technology be used, new technologies be used to advance how storytelling is done, we see AI operating in a very similar way. And maybe the most important thing is a very strong belief that telling a story really, really, really well is a very human quality. It's actually something that very few humans on the planet can do consistently well again and again and again. And working with those amazing storytellers, we want to give them the best tools so they can choose what tools they want to use. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how great you can make a picture look. If the story isn't there, it's not compelling to us.
But that's between the cameras. And if you think in the front of the cameras, they use, for example, for special effects, it's already happening or no?
Well, definitely we're seeing, for example, you mentioned effects. So in VFX, people are using more and more tools, new tools to do that. But again, that's been going on for the last, 50 years, essentially. And so I would say, will things change? Yeah, I think things will change, and we'll be able to see we'll see effects on the screen that we weren't able to see before as a result. But again, I believe that humans will be at the heart of that process because they're the ones that are going to decide what looks amazing, what works for the story, what's a great way to tell that story.
Thinking about, for example, the dubbing you said.
Yeah.
The dubbing wouldn't be made, for example, for AI instead of human, for example?
Well, again, I think different parts of the process are going to be affected in different ways, and that's fair. And quite frankly, we don't even know exactly how that's going to unfold because we don't know the technology is moving so quickly. But so, there will be changes in parts of the process, but I think the idea that we're going to remove humans from it, I think that's where I just fundamentally disagree.
Rick, thinking about the business, there is a strategy of verticalization of the business. I'd like to understand if these M&As and acquisitions are in the scope of your activity here. Of course, thinking about it, the the global activity of Netflix.
And meaning, so just help me.
M&As and
Yeah.
acquisitions of
Yeah, so we've done, I would say, about 12-ish acquisitions. They're much smaller, I think, than clearly anything that we've announced recently.
Okay.
But what are examples? We've a visual effects company. We mentioned visual effects, right? We acquired a company called Scanline, Eyeline, which has been helping us develop that technology. We've acquired a few game studios as well to help make interactive, an animation studio, a few IP acquisitions like the Roald Dahl IP library. So, I think when we see an opportunity like that to, advance either IP, storytelling, production capability, technology, and we think it's priced right, we'll go after those.
I'd like to understand the interest again in the Brazilian market, because we saw, for example, Brazilian productions being nominated for the Oscar.
Yeah, very
last
exciting.
year, this year.
Secret Agent. I mean,
The Secret Agent.
Yeah.
And what's the capacity of Brazil of doing great productions?
I mean, it's incredible capacity, and part of the reason we were so excited to get started here with original productions was because of that capacity. Quite frankly, it's a capacity we're also investing in. So we've done several investments to make sure that we are helping train the next generation of the skilled trades that support production. But I think there's many more stories to be told here. We're excited about what's coming in the next several years.